Not one set. Not one convincing game that made the crowd lean forward and think, yes, today is the day. She arrived at Roland Garros as she always did, with the Philippine flags already filling the stands of whatever court she was assigned, with the chants already building in the corridors, with the weight of a diaspora resting on her 21-year-old shoulders like something she had learned, over time, to carry without flinching. And then she lost. First round. Iva Jovic. 6-4, 6-2. Clinical, clean, the kind of scoreline that doesn't leave room for argument. The match was over before the afternoon had fully committed to being warm. The flags came down slowly. The chants faded into the Parisian breeze. The supporters who had crashed the ticketing system trying to secure seats on court 14 folded their signs, tucked their banners under their arms, and began the quiet walk toward the exits. Alex Eala was out of Roland Garros before May had finished its third week. By any conventional measure, her French Open was a failure. By every other measure, the ones that don't fit neatly on a scoreboard, the ones that take years to fully understand, it was something else entirely. Something that 30 million people would watch on their phones within 24 hours. Something that a 56-year-old woman with one of the greatest voices in Asian musical history would make possible with a single song on the most famous clay court in the world. But we'll get there. First, let's talk about the morning after. May 27th, 2026. Roland Garros. 4:47 p.m. The day after her loss, Alex Eala came back to Roland Garros. Not as a competitor. Not as the flag-bearer of a nation. She came back as a fan, as a girl who loved tennis even when tennis broke her heart, who needed to sit in the stands and watch the ball travel across the red clay and remember why she had dedicated her entire life to chasing it. She wore a white hoodie. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. She was doing her best impression of someone who wasn't Alex Eala, finding a seat in the player's box with her head slightly bowed and her shoulders slightly curved, trying to fold herself small enough to disappear into the crowd. It wasn't working. It never works. The cameras find her wherever she goes. The fans recognize the posture even when they can't see the face. But on this afternoon, the afternoon of May 27th, 2026, nobody was looking at Alex Eala. They were looking at the baseline. Because something was happening at the baseline. A figure had emerged from the tunnel. Not a player, not an official, not anyone who had any ordinary reason to be standing at the edge of the red clay at Roland Garros on a Tuesday afternoon. She was 56 years old, dressed simply, carrying a microphone with the ease of someone who had been holding one since before most of the people in that stadium were born. Regine Velasquez, Asia's songbird. The woman whose voice had been the soundtrack of an entire generation of Filipino life. At weddings, at graduations, at the long lonely evenings of overseas workers in apartment rooms far from home, playing her songs on phones with cracked screens and pretending that the distance wasn't as wide as it felt. She had sung for presidents and filled Carnegie Hall and carried on her voice alone the particular kind of longing that defines what it means to be Filipino and far away. She was standing at the baseline of Court Suzanne Lenglen at Roland Garros, and she was looking directly at the player's box. She was looking directly at Alex Eala. The music began. Not from a speaker somewhere high above. Not from the stadium system. From the baseline. Close. Immediate. Unmistakable. You raise me up, so I can stand on mountains. The crowd froze. It was not the gradual settling of an audience recognizing a familiar song. It was instantaneous. The way a room goes quiet when something is happening that everyone understands, without being told, is significant. Players midway through their warm-up on the far side of the court turned toward the sound. Ball kids stood still. The line's judges looked up from their charts. Phones went into the air like a forest growing in fast forward. And the cameras, the ones that had been pointed at the court, at the players, at the usual business of a Grand Slam afternoon, swung around and found her. Found Alex Eala in the player's box, her white hoodie, her pulled back hair, her hand already flying to her mouth before the first verse had finished. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. This was the voice that had followed her everywhere. In Manila, when she was a child learning to hold a racket, her mother had played these songs in the kitchen, on long flights to tournaments, in the earphones that blocked out the engine noise and the anxiety, in the hotel rooms before big matches, when the quiet got too loud and she needed something familiar to hold on to. Now that voice was standing on the red clay of Roland Garros, singing her name without using her name, choosing this moment. Not a victory, not a milestone, not a celebration, but a loss, a first-round exit, a scoreline that the world would interpret as failure, to show up and sing. Not because she won. Because she fought. Alex Eala did not try to stop the tears. There was no stopping them. They came the way tears come when something unexpected reaches directly into the chest and grabs the thing you've been trying to protect. Her shoulders shook. Her head dropped. She pressed both hands over her face, and the cameras caught every frame of it, and none of it felt like an invasion, because what was happening was too human to be kept private. The silence inside that stadium was the loudest thing anyone there had ever heard. 30,000 people holding their breath. The clay doing what clay does, absorbing everything, giving nothing back. The Parisian sky overhead, pale and indifferent. And in the middle of it all, a voice that could fill a concert hall with ease, somehow filling the entire space without effort, making every corner of that enormous arena feel intimate. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. When the final note rang out, when Regine let it go slowly, the way great singers release notes, like setting something free, the crowd erupted. Not politely. Not with the measured appreciation of a tennis audience. They erupted the way crowds erupt at moments they know they will never forget. That combination of release and recognition and something close to grief for the fact that the moment is already ending. Regine walked toward the player. She didn't need the microphone anymore. She held it at her side. "Alex," she said. The whole stadium heard it somehow. "That is what it means to know how to use a voice. This is for you. Not because you won. Because you fought. Because you never gave up. Because you reminded us all that losing does not make you a loser." She paused. "Laban. Alex. Always." She reached out her hand. Alex Eala stood up on legs that were not entirely steady. She reached back. Their hands met over the railing of the player's box, and the crowd chanted her name. Not for a trophy, not for a ranking point, not for anything the sport officially recognizes as achievement. They chanted for a fighter who had lost and come back the next day and sat in the stands in a white hoodie trying to remember why she loved the game. That video was watched 30 million times in the next 24 hours. 30 million people pressing play, watching a songbird walk onto a clay court for a girl who didn't win, and finding in that gesture something they needed to see. A reminder that the scoreboard is not the whole story. That showing up after a loss takes a different kind of courage than showing up after a win. That there is a version of greatness that lives entirely outside the trophies. May 28, 2026. A cafe near Roland Garros. Morning. She had barely slept. The what-ifs had been loud in the dark. The replays ran on a loop behind her closed eyes. The moments in the Jovic match where she felt the game slipping, the points she couldn't recover, the adjustments she didn't make in time. 6-4, 6-2. Clean. That's the worst kind of loss. The kind that doesn't leave you room to blame the net cord or the wind or a bad bounce. The kind that just tells you plainly, she was better today. You weren't good enough. Come back when you are. The message from Regine had come through before dawn. A cafe near Roland Garros. 9 in the morning. Come hungry. The owner was a Filipino expat who had lived in Paris for 11 years and recognized them both in the first second. He said nothing, led them to the back room, brought out tapsalog and steaming black coffee, refused every attempt at payment, and pulled the door closed behind him with the quiet efficiency of someone who understood that what was about to happen in that room deserved privacy. They sat across from each other in the particular stillness of a Paris morning. The city outside not yet fully awake, the light coming through the frosted window at a low angle, the coffee sending thin ribbons of steam into the air between them. Alex Eala looked at the woman across the table. The woman whose voice had lived in her chest since childhood. Who had sung at her parents' wedding. Who existed in some deep part of her, not as a celebrity but as a constant, as permanent and dependable as the sound of rain on a Manila rooftop. "Thank you," she said. It came out smaller than she meant it to. "For coming. For yesterday. For making me feel like I hadn't failed." Regine set down her coffee cup. "You didn't fail, Alex." Her voice in this small room was different from the voice at the baseline yesterday. Quieter, unhurried, stripped of performance. Just a woman talking to a girl who needed to hear something true. "You lost a tennis match. That's not the same thing. Failure is quitting. And you have never quit. Not once. Not for a single day of your life." Ella looked down at her hands. Her fingers, still slightly calloused from the grip tape, wrapped around the warm cup. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been watching. The same way your people in the stands have been watching. The way the whole country has been watching." Regine leaned forward slightly. "And because I know what quitting looks like. I know the feeling from the inside." Ella looked up. "I've been where you are," Regine said. "Not on a tennis court. On a stage. Albums that didn't perform the way everyone expected. Performances that felt hollow, like I was going through motions I'd rehearsed so many times they'd stopped meaning anything. Critics who wrote about me in past tense. Not cruelly, just matter-of-factly, as if the story were already over and they were simply documenting its conclusion." She paused, something moving through her eyes that was old and recognized and not entirely painful anymore. The way people look when they've made peace with a memory that once had teeth. "Every single time I wanted to stop. To walk off and call it done and let someone else carry the weight for a while. But walking away would have been failure. Losing was just losing." Ella absorbed this. "How did you find your way back?" "I went back to the reason I started. Simply, without drama. The love. The joy. The faces of the people who believed in me. The same faces you see in the stands, Alex. The ones holding the flags." She held her gaze. "They don't hold those flags because you win. You understand that, don't you? They hold them because you fight. Because you stand in front of the whole world and represent something they've never seen represented before. Every time you walk onto a court, in any city, ranked wherever you're ranked, you are proof to a Filipino kid somewhere that the world is not as closed as it looks." Ella's eyes filled. She blinked, pressed her lips together. "I'm scared," she said. "I'm scared I'll never win a Grand Slam. That I'll always be the player who came close and couldn't cross the line. That in 20 years they'll remember me as almost." Regine didn't rush to answer. She let the fear sit in the room for a moment, giving it the space it deserved rather than the quick dismissal it was used to receiving. "Maybe you'll win one," she finally said. "Maybe you'll win several. Maybe you won't. I genuinely don't know. Neither do you. Neither does anyone." She reached across the table. "But here's what I know. What I know for absolute certain. What matters is that you keep showing up. You keep fighting. You keep being the reason a little girl somewhere picks up a racket for the first time, sees your face on a screen, and thinks, if she can do it, maybe I can too." She sat back. "That's not almost greatness, Alex. That's legacy. Those are two completely different things, and one of them is more permanent than any trophy." They talked for 2 hours. Music and tennis and family and home. Regine talked about her early years, the doubt that preceded every early success, the setbacks that arrived without warning, the morning she almost didn't show up to a recording session that would eventually produce one of her most beloved songs. The way the industry had tried, at various points, to sand down her edges, to make her more palatable, more predictable, more like something it already understood, and how the most important thing she had ever done professionally was refuse. Ella talked about the clay, about the way it fought her every step, the surface that required a different game, a different patience, a different body position that she had never fully inhabited comfortably. About the French Open specifically, the way it had refused her year after year in different ways, and the fear that it would keep refusing her forever. She talked about her mother, Riza, who was somewhere in the hotel now, probably awake, probably praying, probably pretending not to worry. She talked about the weight of carrying a nation's hope into a sport that hadn't historically made room for nations like hers, and the particular loneliness of that, even surrounded by thousands of people who loved her. Regine listened with the full attention of someone who had heard these specific fears before. Not because she'd been told them, but because she'd felt them, in her own body, in her own version of this same story. When they finally stood to leave, Regine pressed a small box into her hands. "Open it later," she said. That night, alone in her hotel room with the city of Paris doing what Paris does outside the window, glittering and indifferent and entirely beautiful, Ella sat on the edge of the bed and opened the box. Inside was a gold necklace, a delicate chain holding a small pendant. Fine, carefully made, shaped exactly like the Philippine Islands. She turned it over in her fingers. On the back, engraved in small, precise script, "Laban, always. You are not alone." She held it for a long time. Long enough for the city outside to shift from evening noise to the quieter frequencies of midnight. Long enough to feel the weight of those 4 words. Not heavy, exactly, but substantial. Real in the way only the truest things are real. She put it on. She would not take it off for the rest of her time in Paris. May 29th, 2026. Charles de Gaulle Airport. 9:17 a.m. She was leaving without a win. That was the fact of it. No matter how many millions of people had watched the video. No matter what had happened in that cafe. No matter how warm the pendant felt against her collarbone. The French Open scoreboard had her at 0 wins, 1 loss, and that was what the computers would record and the rankings would reflect and the analysts would cite. She walked toward the Philippine Airlines check-in counter at Charles de Gaulle Airport on a Thursday morning, her racket bag over one shoulder, her mother at her side, and found that something was waiting for her. Not press. Not management. Not officials of any kind. People. Ordinary people. Nurses in their scrubs who had come directly from night shifts, students with backpacks still strapped on, caregivers and engineers and restaurant workers, and every variety of Filipino expat that Paris contained, gathered in a loose, growing crowd around the check-in area, holding handmade signs on cardboard and worn-out flags that had clearly traveled far and been unfolded many times. "Alex, you made us proud. We'll be here when you come back. Laban. Always." Some of them were already crying before she walked through the door. Not for a loss. She understood that immediately, looking at their faces. Not the tears of disappointment. The tears of something being confirmed. Of love having an object. Of a feeling that had no outlet finally finding one.